Good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives, and tonight is going to be a special night where I'm going to talk at length about the struggle before us and the fact that all of our social safety nets are currently in the crosshairs of the deficit and debt hawks. We are, quite honestly, at a point in time right now in our lives where the entire fabric of our society is under attack. And it's not just because of Donald Trump. Folks, it's not just because of Donald Trump. We are talking about an assault by the entire neoliberal establishment. And neoliberalism, for a lot of people, this word is it's strange. They're not quite used to it. They say it. They don't know what it means. And the reality is that neoliberalism is the extreme pushing away of the public purpose in pursuit of the private purpose. Hey, Alexis, how are you? And you see it happening, unfortunately, in this country by both Republicans and Democrats. And because the Republicans have been so absolutely horrific in what they've said and done, and their science denial and their overt racism, sometimes we forget that the Democrats are just horrible too. I mean, we're not talking about redeemable even. We're talking about the armpit of society. And so when you think about it, you ask yourself, well, what is neoliberalism? And neoliberalism is basically going back to classical, that you've heard the libertarians talk about classical, liberalism. And what it is free markets. It's pushing things out to the marketplace. And so as you think about, taking away the public space, taking away government support, you find yourself in a situation where you're left dog eat dog, trying to find a way to survive. And like even the ACA, now mind you, the ACA has some redeemable qualities that make it so that many people on the left were able to hold their nose and support it. But the center right, that whole center establishment, it doesn't understand anything. They are literally trapped in their party's their party's paradigm, right? Yeah, apparently the counter's not working tonight, folks. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. Maybe there's 1 million people watching. Maybe there's only 2. It's just us, just me and you. Anyway, so think about it, right? The neoliberalism that has impacted society started back in the 60s. And quite frankly, in the 70s, it really went out there on a friggin' bender. And the 70s are where you started seeing the Milton Friedman school of thought kicking in, where they took away the public space. They took away the ability for Congress to really, really pass meaningful legislation. And so the days of the NASAs and the days of, these big monstrous things that were there for our lives to help us, they kind of stopped happening. And you saw them push these services out to the private sector. And so you see an incredible push towards 401k plans. You see this push towards all this financialization of our lives going out from the 70s. And you'll also notice that in the 70s, we left the gold standard. So some people try to point this out as, well, we should have never left the Bretton Woods Accord in 1971. But I'm going to make another solution here, and that is that in that same time period, after the OPEC fiasco, you saw the puckering of our economists. You saw the puckering of our government. You saw them pucker deep and totally say, we are not allowing our government to spend on the 99% any longer. We're not allowing them to spend. So all of a sudden now you've got the monetary policy being utilized as all the be-all, end-all of our fiscal strength of our economy. And so these bastards pushed it all to the Fed. And at the same time, they started financializing all of our issues. So we had to go into private debt. So all of our private debt from way back then to now has just done a huge, huge growth. Our private debt has gone to extreme levels. Now all of a sudden we're at this point where we don't have any means. How you doing, Richard? We don't have any means to actually get ourselves out of these holes, because as the wealth gap has grown immensely from the 70s to present, you've seen all of our money, as we try to get out of debt, all of the interest and all the other extra payments and so forth keep going to the rich as they're sitting on their yachts, drinking their Grand Marnier, smoking their friggin' Cubans, and enjoying, the dancing and whatnot that goes on deck. And we have been sitting here slugging it out on basically a flat line forever. I mean, our flat line has just kept going and going and going. And the reason for that is that they have limited our public policy space as if we are on the gold standard. They've made the rules as if we're on the gold standard. And so much of what our lives are like are restricted as if we're still on the gold standard. That would be you and me. The wealthy, however, they're not on the gold standard. They are officially living MMT in its most extreme fashion. And that is that instead of them flipping it around and spending on the 99%, they have in turn cut off the 99% from the spending, and they have made us go in debt to give a basic income to the wealthy. And then they have in turn bailed out the wealthy over and over again to maintain that power structure. So when you talk about the system's rigged, that's your rigging right there. That's your rigging. And that, my friends, is why Democrats and Republicans have literally become the enemy. Now, when I see progressives say that they're going to be a Democrat or whatever, they want to take over the party, they want to change the party, they want to do whatever. Look, that's not for me, but I respect anybody that wants to try and fix the system. I'm not sheeping over that way, though, so we're on the same page. All right. Now, getting that out of the way, when you understand how entrenched it is in our minds that we're broke, that we can't keep printing money, a gold standard operation. You've heard Ellis talk about cranking the money. It's all about the money, cranking the money. That's not how it's done. That's, once again, more gold standard bullshit. What's done, and what has been done for quite some time now, quite frankly, there was a letter in 1946 that St. Louis Fed Chief Beardsley Rummel said, taxes for revenue are obsolete. 1946, all right? So going all the way back to 1946, they were saying this. Back in 1934, you know this thing, this anachronism that you hear all the gold bugs, and you even hear some of these green beans out there that have lost their ever-loving mind about fractional reserve lending and fractional reserve system and all that crap. That ended back in 1934. 1934, and these bastards are still trying to keep us down by pretending like it exists today. Shame on you for being a liar. So in any event, so all these folks have all these myths, all these legends, and none of them, not one single one of them, have anything to do with benefiting us. The same people, and I'm not just talking about the power structure, I'm talking about you and I now, socializing at the water cooler, sitting there at the gas station, at the ball game, at, friggin' Boy Scouts, or, at the, whatever we're doing, at the yard sale, sitting there at the women's club, playing cards. We're talking about this stuff. And of course, you've got Joe with a beer in his hand. Yeah, man, it's just crazy, man. They just print the money. They just print money, man. They just print it on up. They just keep printing more money. Liar. But that's what they talk about at the water cooler, because they don't know any better. So what I have been doing is, for years, way before real progressives even existed, I was already on a pathway from being a lifelong Republican. I swung, my leftward swing started going over there to Ron Paul, only because Ron Paul supported ending the drug war, or at least that's the way it came off. And he supported no foreign wars, no intervention wars. So it's like, this guy's got some things going on that I can agree with. Not a lot, but there's some. But then I got caught up in the end the Fed shit. Audit the Fed, end the Fed. You know, the gold bug nonsense, the 3 a.m. fear porn that they tell you. The coming economic collapse. You know, and there's Ron Paul. You know, I'm a doctor. I'm an OB doctor, and I'm telling you there's going to be an economic collapse. And then, you know, everybody's got the Ron Paul shirts and the revolution. And, you know, it's fun. It's cool. Great bumper stickers, right? All this shit you find out is all about the bumper stickers. It's all about the sloganeering. It's all about the logos. But very, very, very little of it has to do with any substance. And so I had already gotten my master's degree in business administration. I had already got my master of science in technology management. And I got laid off. And I had been at Verizon for 17 years, and my life literally went into a death spiral. I mean, my grass was 6 foot high. Life was just ridiculous. It was bad. I've talked about this before. I won't bore you with all the details, but for those of you who have not heard this before, let me just say, for the record, my life was in the shitter. The great crash in 2008 and 2009 cost me my career, and it took me a very long time to get back on my feet. I mean, I'm talking about 18 months. And the job that I found coming out of that 18-month slide without work, they said, hey, we'll pay you 55. I said, 55 an hour? And they're like, no, 55,000 a year. I was like, man, I don't even get out of bed in the morning for that. Just so you understand how this Republican used to think. And all of a sudden I had to take this job that paid me nothing after all the investment I put in, after having this long career. I just couldn't figure out why the world wasn't shining on me. You know, it was really, really difficult. I had no idea what the hell was going on. This was a foreign world. And many Republicans, many vote blue sycophants, many centrists that think that the world is just easy going, that don't really realize how rough it really is. People like myself at the time, you know, we would sit there and we just couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, the shock of our lives hits, and man, we're destitute. They're going to foreclose on the house. They're going to repossess the car. They're going to repossess everything. The wife leaves. She takes the kids. She takes the Great Danes. You know, the Great Danes, right? I mean, these dogs ate 40 pounds a day. You know, this was an expensive lifestyle. You know, I was used to living a lifestyle that was very, very different than what it became. So all of a sudden now, not only am I unemployed, but I'm dealing with $3,000 a month in child support. Folks, I have 2 master's degrees. I had certifications out the wazoo. I'm unemployed. I got $3,000 in child support, and I can't get out of my own way. I'm sizing up the rafters in the basement for a hangman's noose. I'm looking at bridges, thinking maybe the blow will knock me out before I die. I'm telling you right now, I had all kinds of shit going through my head. And so as you fight through these things, as you see that, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, as you look across the way at the people that didn't have a mother and a father there to help bail them out ever, that didn't have the education, who didn't have a career that backed them up, who didn't have, you know, I mean, I didn't look like a friggin' thug. I looked, you know, kind of like I look now. You know, everything was, you know, I seemed like a okay guy, I guess, you know. So people cut me slack. They did different things, but my life was falling apart. So my leftward swing came at a price. A blue flame of pain struck my heart, struck my life, burned my hair off, singed my body, destroyed everything, broke down everything. I was shrunk down to a nub. And I was a Christian. So prior, now mind you, the Christianity I came into was really about being an alcoholic in sobriety. But nonetheless, I would go to church on Sundays. I would hear all the things about being a good steward, saving your money, you know, bad choices, and, you know, you shouldn't have done that. And, you know, you do these things, you're going to have bad times, you're going to hell. And and so forth. So I kind of lived in this haughty, judgmental kind of approach. I still have some of that at times, I'm not going to lie, because I judge people that don't take the time to learn. That I still do. Probably not going to change, by the way. But in any event, so I went through a lot of shit on my transition from being a righty to a Ron Pauli, and then to a far lefty, to a super far lefty, to a lefty so far that the Democrats don't even really fit the bill, okay? The Green Party fits the bill more than anything I got right now, and I'm hoping, honestly, that we'll have a coalition party that will really capture what it is that I am. Because right now, I'm not willing to tear the world down because I don't understand economics, which is why we're going to jump right back into it. So I told you all that so you could understand why this subject is so important to me. So, you know, people saw that I was smart. They saw that I was able to talk. They saw that I was willing to engage. They knew that I had a passion for things, but I had the passion for the wrong things, and they could tell that I was misguided. They could tell that I didn't really have all my facts straight. I was still living in a gold standard world. And so a guy named Bruce Patrick took an interest in me and showed me modern monetary theory. He talked to me about, tell me what a dollar is. I was like, I don't know what a freaking dollar is. I mean, it's a piece of paper, right? That's what it is, a piece of paper. He goes, not exactly. He goes, that's a representation of a dollar. He said, but you've never actually seen a dollar. You know why? I said, no, why? He goes, because a dollar is an idea, it's a score. He goes, where do scores, where do points come from in a football game? I said, he goes, well, somebody keystrokes them in so they go up on the board, right? I was like, yeah. He goes, that's the same place dollars come from. I was like, tell me more of this strange thing you have, sir. So bottom line is that it took a long time for me to realize, yeah, don't worry about the counter, guys. The counter, whatever, right? It's just me and you. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that when we sat down and he showed me, he'd send me the videos that you guys get to see from us. He would send me links to L. Randall Wray, to New Economic Perspectives, to Myth Fighter with Rodger Malcolm Mitchell. He would send me all over the place. He even introduced me to Cullen Roche from PragCap, just to kind of say, here's a guy that, you know, used to be an MMTer. Now he thinks he's found the sliver of wrongness in it, and he's like all over it, but he's wrong. In any event, you know, he took all this time to teach me. And then I had this group called Grumbine's Political Mosh Pit. Grumbine's Political Mosh Pit was the best debate group ever. And not just because it had my name on it. It had people like Warren Mosler, had people like John Harvey. It had Scott Fulwiler, Scott Ferguson, a ton of people that really took the time to learn MMT. And then on the other side, we had Austrians in there. And we had all the Republicans in there. And we had everybody in there. And ironically, even though there was some trolling, people respected the fact that the friggin' big dogs were here to play. We weren't screwing around. We weren't trolling each other. We were literally fighting it out about the nuances of economics. And I mean, it was a slugfest. And we would have a post pinned to the top of the page, and it would be two people from opposite sides dueling. And it was so fun to watch. And you would watch these people that really knew their shit fighting it out. Well, over years, I learned this stuff. And as my life slowly but surely got back together from the crash of 2008, 2009, people kept swearing, when his life is better, he's going to go back to being a Republican. I know he will, but it didn't happen that way. I went further left because at the end of the day, I was never a selfish person. I just didn't understand. I just was ignorant. And so I said a lot of ignorant things based on a preconceived idea that people were screwed up in life because they made bad choices, because they just sucked, you know? I mean, I had this belief that people had just kind of bought the farm. They really were just bad people, you know? Sitting on their porch, drinking a 40, smacking their wife around, doing whatever it was. That's why they're in jail. They're in jail because they broke the law. They're in jail because they did this, whatever. Kids are screwing up in school because they suck. They're stupid. I didn't know any better. I was the same guy. I thought school vouchers were a great idea because why should my kids suffer for some social experiment so your kids can do better? And that was kind of how I looked at it. I mean, I wasn't trying to be rude. I wasn't trying to be mean. I just genuinely was looking out for my family. I didn't understand. I had no idea how pervasive economic inequality and economic justice was lacking from our society. And I had no idea it was intentionally made that way. But I learned. And once I learned, I couldn't unlearn it. Once the lights came on, I couldn't shut them off. And I have never stopped talking about this day in and day out now for 4 years straight. For 4 years straight, I have done this 24 hours a day, round the clock, trying to get folks to understand modern monetary theory. For 4 years, I have done this every single day. I've either done it on my wall in Grummind's Political Mosh Pit, in Real Progressives, wherever it goes, Modern Money Planning Committee, the Intro to Modern Monetary Theory, all the different places out there I have done it. We used to go to Mises and fight with them on their board. We would go all over the place into Republican strongholds, all these different groups, and we'd just fight. We'd go as a pack, and we'd go in there and talk economics. And the thing is that you can't beat the truth. The truth is the truth is the truth. And no matter how much you fight it and resist it, you end up coming back to the fact that modern monetary theory is a solid science and it is perfect. It is exactly what it is. And once you understand it, you recognize that you can save the world. You can at least save our country. And you can at least save our children. And you can save our environment. And you can give people single-payer health care as a citizen's benefit. And you can do so many things. And I didn't know about the Green Party, folks, until, I knew about them. I heard about them. But I never really thought of them as a viable entity. They still got flaws, let's be fair. But I didn't really realize who they were in any meaningful fashion until the DNC this year. Let's see how my journey has gone. So when I was sitting there at the People's Convention, I met Margaret Flowers, and I also met Kevin Zeese, and I also met Nina Turner, and I also met Jill Stein. And it was a really, really cool experience. I also met, I don't know if you all remember, Portia Bolger. She went crazy in Claudia's video, I don't know. Anyway, I met all these people. And, I met a bunch of you there too, a bunch of you who have become my lifelong friends. But that was my first taste of the Green Party. But this modern monetary theory that I speak to is not mine. It's not new at all. Folks, modern monetary theory is a description of currency wherever it is. Modern monetary theory describes the currency in Greece. It describes the currency in Italy. It describes the currency in Canada, and it describes the currency in Australia. It describes currency wherever it's located. It's not specific just to the United States. It's a really important thing for you to understand. It's not telling you you should spend. It's not telling you you should cut spending. What it's telling you is that don't tell a lie. Here's how it works. And once you see how it works, it's kind of like a no-brainer that you end up becoming a progressive just because you understand the policy space available to you. And when you realize that, you get to kind of tell whether you're an asshole or you were just ignorant. Because once you realize that taxes don't fund spending, you get to figure out whether or not you feel like people deserve free college. You get to figure out whether they deserve green energy. You get to figure out whether they deserve any help at all. It's not a matter of whether we can afford it, folks. We can afford it. We can afford everything. And every time you hear someone say that we're broke, or Social Security is going to go insolvent, or you hear anything about Medicare going bankrupt, or you hear they're literally lying. I mean, like, this is not like, well, that's just your opinion, dude. No, I mean, they're straight up fucking telling you a lie. So this fuels my fire because I am tired of lies. Folks, I've been fighting this revolution before Bernie came around, before any of that. And the reason why I've been fighting it is because once I realized that my pain and suffering, selfishly, my pain and suffering had been completely avoidable. It could have been completely eradicated had I had a government that wasn't lying to us. I wouldn't be $125,000 in the hole for college. You know, I wouldn't be, well, I mean, you look a gift horse in the mouth, I guess it's a good thing that I got divorced, you know? But the reality is that, you know, financial problems are the #1 destroyer of marriages in America. So maybe I would still be in a bad marriage with somebody. I don't know, whatever. Point I'm making is that so much of the social ills in America are economically driven by our government. Our government has chosen to make us beg for crumbs. And the new people that come in, they may say, hey, I'm not corporate bought. I'm not bought and paid for. I receive no corporate funds. However, there's still a freaking neoliberal pushing the whole taxes fund spending shit. Pushing the whole, how you gonna pay for it? Okay? And the reality is that as you look and you understand that this lie about taxes funding spending is probably the #1 reason why the Republicans, who are deeply against taxation, and the LOL libertarians, who just hate government, and the Vote Blue sycophants can't ever pass any legislation. Because the Vote Blue sycophants are so in bed, so wedded to the idea that the Republicans have to be wrong. So they naturally think they've got to raise taxes to pay for things. The Republicans, on the other hand, want to cut taxes, and because they stupidly think that taxes fund spending, they want to cut services to offset it. It's not really about the services. It's really about the taxes. You see what I'm saying? So when you go into these things and you start having these fights and you see our very own brothers and sisters in the progressive movement talking about how badly we need to tax to fund things, know that they are part of the problem. Now, I'm not saying that taxes are extremely important to this equation. They just don't one-for-one pay for things. The art of taxing and the art of spending are two separate dealios, okay? Taxes, imagine this, back in the day, our taxes didn't exist, right? You've heard people say, well, they never taxed before. The deal is this. In all fiat currencies, the only reason why you accept a piece of paper as an IOU that's spendable is because you believe when you get that piece of paper that you're going to actually be able to get goods and services for it. So you have a faith that that piece of paper is going to do what it says it will do. It's redeemable for X, Y, and Z. Well, it used to be that our pieces of paper were tied to a commodity like gold. So you knew that if you ever wanted to trade that piece of paper, and you could always go get a nugget of gold. But it also, even going further than that, the king would sit there and say, we want to build a castle. We want to build roads. We want to build an aquifer. We want to build those aqueducts or whatever they call those things back in the day of the Roman times. So what did the king do, or the emperor do, or whoever do? He would mint a coin in his image or whatever. They call it the king's gold, right? And the king's gold was different than Jose's gold or Bobby Lou's gold or whoever's gold because it had his stamp on it. So why does that matter? Well, his stamp, okay, was what drove the currency. You couldn't pay your taxes in anything but that currency. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you. They had to make the gold, they had to mint the coin before they ever collected the first tax. So what the heck, man? Obviously, taxes don't fund spending, right? So what would happen? The king would say, I'll give you this coin if you'll build my roads for me. So the people were like, I don't care if I get that coin. Who needs that coin? I want fish. I want to go hunt a bear. I want to do something other than that. I feel like just kicking it with my homies, surf style. Let's go dig some potatoes. I don't really feel like dealing with your roads. And so he said, how can I get them to build my castle for me without bopping them on the head and create slavery? How can I get them to actually help build a road? I know what I'll do. I'll impose a tax payable only in the king's gold. So the king's gold then, in turn, had to be taxed. Now you have to have the king's gold. If you don't have the king's gold, you can't pay your tax. If you don't pay your tax, they're going to take your property, okay? So now all of a sudden you're driven to get the gold, right? So the king goes ahead and issues a tax on your property or whatever, and now all of a sudden you need the gold, so you'll go to work and you'll put the roads together. You'll do whatever. So now this gold allows you to purchase things. It allows you to get your food. It allows you to get your whatever it is, whatever services you want to barter with. This now serves as legal tender. So that's the deal. Taxes don't fund spending, okay? But your dollar derives its value. Otherwise, it would be like firewood, right? It'd be no big deal. You have a stack of fat stacks of Benjamins and everything else and light them on fire, and it wouldn't matter because they would be worthless. But they're not worthless, are they? Because if you don't have them, you can't pay your taxes. And what happens to homies then they don't pay their taxes? They go to jail. They get their house seized. They get their car seized. They, whatever. They get blocked from services. They get their paychecks garnished, whatever, right? Bad things happen to people that don't pay their taxes. But the taxes don't pay for things. So when you say, I'm not going to pay my taxes, I'll show them, you're not really doing anything. But the truth is that you could cause some sort of a drive on inflation, because what caused the South, the Confederacy, to go belly up was that they didn't really enforce taxes, and they had lost their productive capacity. And so their Confederate dollars were worthless because they couldn't enforce a tax on it. They were still being red state T-billies back in the day. So the tax, no, it's horrible. We're not, So their money was worthless, and they had a hyperinflation. They had severe pain and suffering, not for the wealthy, but for the regular people. Okay? Anyway, flash forward to today. You've got an administration that is threatening to literally cut everything that's out there. And that should scare you. But it shouldn't scare you just because, oh my God, a Republican's about to cut the social safety nets. They always try to do this stuff, okay? Bill Clinton and his horrible wife, the two horrible people of the Democratic Party, back in the 90s, were slashing and burning stuff. They had ripped apart the welfare system, all in the name of fiscal responsibility. She had the audacity to tell us that Bernie Sanders' plans were pie in the sky. She had the audacity to talk about the fact that we couldn't afford things, that we had to go ahead and just do for these people of 125,000 and less, okay? Now, I'm going to get to NAFTA in a second because that's an important thing here. But before we even get to NAFTA, let's just keep talking about all the shit that the Clintons did back in the day. So they went ahead and they literally got rid of Glass-Steagall. Bill Clinton gave the pen that he signed that with to Sandy Weil, the big old Wall Street guy who took great pleasure, put that pen up there as a trophy for dismantling Glass-Steagall. Brother Bill was very proud of that. The New Democrat was basically a Republican with better bedside manners and nothing more. Now, to this day, Clinton was bragging about her husband's surplus. Now, if you know that taxes don't fund spending, if you understand in our current system that a tax received is deleted with keystrokes, your hard-earned tax dollars really, truly flushed down the toilet. That's what happens. Remember, taxes drive currency. If we didn't do taxes, we'd end up with kindling. That wood, to start fires, that's all our dollar would be worth if we didn't have taxes. So taxes have a good value. There's a reason you want the dollar taxed. But you don't need it to spend, to fund spending. So the neoliberals like Obama, who many people worthlessly still praise. I mean, worthlessly still praise this guy. Drives me crazy. But he sat there and did many of the same things. The sequestration, he was fine with that. They were fine with cutting spending. He did an initial stimulus, and then ever since then, it was cut. Now, I'm telling you right now that all of them, Republicans and Democrats, were pushing for mass globalization. They were pushing for massive privatization, corporatism. And they were pushing for you and I to absorb the blow with private debt that we could never get out of. I mean, they even made it illegal to discharge your student loans. They even went to the trouble of trying to make it so that you couldn't get out of credit card debt. They made it even harder to file regular bankruptcy. But lo and behold, what did they do? They signed in the TARP bailout. They signed in the bailout for all the auto industry. They signed in bailouts all over the place. The only people that didn't get bailed out were you and I. So why in the world do people still prop up the Democratic Party? I'm not joking. This is not like bash, bash, bash. This is just truth, truth, truth. Truth bombs coming up. The Green Party still, go back, seriously, anytime you think that this party's got it or that party's got it or the other party's got it. Now, mind you, I am most closely aligned with the Green Party, so no mistake about it. But when you listen to the people in charge and they talk about taxes funding spending, we'll pay for it by doing this. We'll pay for it by doing that. When you hear that, you know that they don't understand economics, or they just know that you don't understand economics, okay? And their job is to get elected. It's not to teach you economics, so they're just going with your knowledge level. So what happens? They're going to naturally push the taxes. Then what's going to happen invariably, every time they push something, the Republicans are going to say, no new taxes. Read my lips, no new taxes. No new taxes. They're not going to. Grover Norquist has every single Republican on the hook saying they will not raise taxes. Okay? So then we got this thing called the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is an archaic law, okay, that is just there. It's like a rule, and they always raise the tax. There's no reason for the cap to be there whatsoever. None. Zero purpose in it being there. But they use this as a political tool. Guess who gets hurt by it? That's right, you and I. We get hurt by it. They cut essential services to kind of fight with each other. I'll use these people suffering to get back at your people suffering. And we'll make those people suffer to make these people suffer. And everybody suffers. And that's how they do it. Now, I have no problem with Republicans coming in as long as they have truth on their side and saying, hey, This doesn't make sense. I'm not okay with that. Or I have no problem with Democrats if they're founded in truth saying, I don't like this. This is not something I want to support. I get it. We're allowed to have differences of opinion when it comes to what policies we can enact. However, what we are not entitled to is a different set of facts. Fact number one, the United States is monetarily sovereign. The Federal Reserve is our nation's central bank. We are not friggin' bigots. We're not a bunch of friggin' assholes that hate the Jews. It's one thing to hate Zionism. It's one thing to hate the military. And it's one thing to hate the way Israel treats people. But to just be bigoted against Jews, not going to get it done, folks. So this whole Rothschilds thing, it's all founded in that old bigotry. You look at the cartoons, they got the guys with the hook nose and the long fingers like demons, and they do all this stuff. It's evil, folks. It's bigotry. Okay? This is more playing on your thoughts of the Jews, the evil Jews. Okay? This is what they do. And it sidetracks you from focusing on the truth that we can afford things. It sidetracks you from understanding that there's no real debt. Debt denominated, meaning our own currency, debt denominated in our U.S. currency is not debt like we know it at all. We can friggin' keystroke the shit and it's out of there. Joe Firestone talked about minting the $1 trillion coin, the $100 trillion coin. We could mint a coin today. It would be no big deal. We could easily do it. Okay? Bottom line is that they use debt and deficit fears, both the Republicans and the Democrats, depending on who's in office. That worthless parasite, Paul Krugman, 1 minute when the Democrats are in office thinks that deficits are kick-ass. The next minute when Republicans get in there, now all of a sudden deficits are horrible. Now all of a sudden they're going to blow up the budget. Now all of a sudden they're going to blow up the debt. The bottom line is the United States government is the creator of the dollar because the dollar is what drives us to do things for the government. That's what we're supposed to, it's what the paper's for, to drive us for the public purpose. The dollar was created by the U.S. government. It is the sole possession of the U.S. government. It's a tax credit for us. Remember, we have to pay our taxes in U.S. dollars. Those U.S. dollars are tax credits. We give them back to the government. They're theirs. But we use them to buy goods and services. So when you tell me that our government is broke, are you telling me that the people that had their fingers pushing the keypads, their fingers are all broken, or they've been cut off and they're trying to fist the keys? Folks, it's the dumbest fucking thing you've ever said. Don't allow them to make you out to be a moron. Don't let them treat you like a stupid idiot. Dollars are created by fingers putting numbers into ledgers that represent deposits into accounts. You know, like when you go to the bank, the teller goes, all of a sudden, you've got $100 in your ledger. You spend it, $100 is taken out of your ledger. That's it. Now, a lot of things that have been taught to us have been bastardized and completely wrong. This thing called NAIRU, N-A-I-R-U, is this whole belief. Basically our government manufactures unemployment to keep us dying and desperate for work. So that when the job makers come around, they can say, who will take $10 less an hour than they took before to do this work? Okay? They want us begging, they want us hungry, and this is their answer to that. Well, MMT has a different answer for that. We call it the federal job guarantee. The federal job guarantee is there not to give us make work, not to say, well, robots are coming, so why do we have a job guarantee? Well, first of all, we're not morons, so we're not talking about the same thing that the people that say that say, right? That's almost as dumb as Republicans saying what they say. The people that say, well, the robots are coming, so we won't need work. That's just about as dumb. It's like equal footing of stupid, right? Because the type of work we're talking about is not necessarily sitting there doing the things that robots can do. We're talking about painting. We're talking about taking care of a sick mother, caregiver. We're talking about taking care of a child, caregiver. We're talking about teaching guitar lessons to the local community. Oh, I don't know, arts and crafts again? We're talking about whatever it is that serves your local public purpose. So Jill Stein talked about, instead of having an unemployment office, we would have an employment office in every community. What we're talking about here is setting the bar so that the sicko employers can't hold our lives in the balance, making us fearful that they'll take away our lives and lay us off, like Steve Grumbine was in 2009, July 24th, 2009 to be exact. Thank you very much, Verizon. Now go kindly screw yourself. So the truth of the matter is that when you think about it, our job as advocates for MMT, our job as activists, is to give cover for the academics who are out there having to be gentlemen. Good day to you, sir. How do you do, sir? Coffee at 3, tea at 2, whatever. Oh, white glove treatment. Here you go. They have to dance the orthodox dance while sprinkling in pieces of truth, because that's what orthodoxy does. That's what academia does. In order to give academia air cover, in order to give our political figures air cover, these policy groups, like when Rohan Gray came on here and blew your minds, those folks right there, in order for them to have air cover, they need us activists out there occupying a congressman's office with signs, locking arms, blocking sit-ins, blocking traffic, doing whatever to say, we know you're lying. We know the country is not broke. We know Social Security is not broke. And Joe Firestone will tell you, Pete Peterson, we're not broke, brother. Stop lying about the debt. Okay? And what I'm telling you is that we need to start doing civil disobedience, not just for pipelines. Do you understand me? I know it's cool, and I agree with the pipeline stuff. Hell, I love it. If I had a different life, I'd be right down to my backyard in Lancaster, and I'd be over there with them protesting the Atlantic Sunrise pipeline. People from Real Progressives are there now, like Chelsea, okay? But this is another thing altogether. When you look at the elderly who will suffer if we get rid of Social Security or try to privatize it or whatever, they're probably not going to be in position to rock the world going out and protesting. They're depending on us to stand in the gap. When you think about the disabled who are going to lose different things as they try to privatize different things, like medical care once again, folks, what's going to happen? They're looking for you and I to care enough about the economic justice in this nation to demand they told you, put those friggin' human chains together, block down highways, block offices, occupy their friggin' Senate offices, occupy the damn Congress. Make sure they know. Stop thinking the only way you can protest is if you got a stupid pussy hat on and you're going there to talk about show me your tax returns, Donald Trump. Use your brains, for crying out loud. Instead of wasting that effort seeking Trump's tax returns, why are we not actively seeking that they tell the truth and stop lying to us about Social Security being insolvent? Why don't they tell us the truth about why they force us into unemployment? And they create unemployment, and then they try to cut the benefits off to force us back into taking these shit jobs that are there instead of maximizing our potential. Why do we let them treat us like shit? You ask, what do we do, Steve? I don't know. What the hell do we do? I don't know. What do? We do the same damn thing you would do if some black kid got gunned down by some nefarious alpha cop, or some woman who got raped and then was completely, the guy was let off the hook. You go and you freaking show up and you fight for justice. When you see injustice, you fight it. Well, here you go. Economic justice, folks. That's what real progressives, bedrock, the cornerstone that we represent is economic justice. And you want to put your fist in the air, there's something to put your fist in the air about. And I tell you what, this is a shout to the left. I've been hitting punching to the right and the center. This is a punch leftward. I don't care about your resource-based economy right now. I don't. We can't even get basic people to stop being basic and start realizing that we are monetarily sovereign and that we can afford these things. We can't even get them to understand the basics about we could afford green energy today. Stop telling me you've got to dismantle capitalism first. Maybe you do later, but right now, if you've really got an event horizon coming with a major calamity coming, I don't want to hear your crap about a resource-based economy. We got to get through this transition first, wherever the next level goes. Stop trying to bypass this because you're killing people just the same as the GOP by being obstinate and fighting against that which we can save lives today. So there's your call out, lefties, my brother, my sister. We have MMT right now. It's not, when are we going to adopt MMT? It's not, well, if they'll only adopt it. MMT is. Remember what I said it is. MMT, modern monetary frickin' reality. Okay? MMT is a description of how our federal financing works today. It's not some hunky thing, hokey thing that we suddenly have to rip apart this and send this there and do this over here and shit on this and crap on that. It is what it is today, and it can happen right fucking now. We don't need to green the dollar. We don't have to, democratize the dollar. Woo, step right up, folks. I got some snake oil here. We're going to get rid of the fractional reserve. What? Did he just? Well, we're going to get rid of the fractional. What? 1934. Well, I can't tell him that. I wrote a bunch of books. My name's Zarlenga, and I wrote a bunch of books based on the fractional positive money. What? It's all a lie? Well, I want them to still buy my books. They're still believing this shit. Woo! I'm telling you right now, folks, what we have today, right now, MMT, can fix everything about our lives right freaking now. The minute you guys get your fist in the air and decide this is worth fighting for. I'm telling you, for 4 years, day in, day out, round the clock, I have sat there and fought this fight. And I'm getting to the point now where I don't have patience, man. I sit there and go off on trolls. I rip them to shreds. I freaking cut people's legs out from under them because I am tired of people standing in the way of progress. Folks, I have 9 kids, and I look at them, and then when I see somebody getting in the way, you know what I'm thinking? I'm looking at them as if they've got a gun to my child's head. So when you see me rip someone apart, it's not because I'm mean. It's because I love my kids too much to allow stupidity to kill them. Yeah, got real, didn't it? Got real quick, real fast, right there. When you say stupid things about the Rothschilds, I think you're trying to kill my kid. I literally do, because it's not actionable. If you want action, what are you going to do? I've talked about this before. It's my joke of the day. But the reality, what are you going to do? Go bribe the butler with some Skittles and get the butler to spike the Rothschild's tea in the morning and kill them when they're in the shower? What are you going to do? Put some baby oil on the floor when they go to take the shower and slip and fall and die? You got to do something, because otherwise I don't want to hear it anymore. I mean, seriously. We have modern monetary theory right now, and it works right now. What doesn't work is that you and I, it's not just that the politicians are bad. They are bad. It's not just the fact that you don't like the Federal Reserve, which controls interest rates and stuff like that. They do, whatever. It's because you don't understand that you are entitled, that all the money printing or money creation that our federal government does, that's your and my money. That is our national resources. That is our national treasures. You get what I'm saying? That's ours. We demand. You are a servant, Mr. Congressman. You are a servant, Mr. Governor. You are a servant, Mr. and Mrs. Senator. You are a servant, Mr. or Mrs. President. A servant, our public servant. You are not to be revered. You're not to be a hero. You're not to be protected. I don't give a shit if it's Bernie Sanders. I love you, Bernie. I don't care if it's Jill Stein. I love you, Jill. I don't care if it's a John Mubaraka. You know I love you, brother. At the end of the day, if they're wrong, they're wrong. They're there to serve us. And you stand up and you say, hell no. You don't sit there and say, well, what do you want, Trump? Don't be worthless. You stand up and you speak out for truth, damn it. Our kids are depending on this. They're depending on it. Do you understand that? The future, everything that they inherit is not the debt. They inherit your inaction. They inherit the world that you leave them. They inherit your apathy and the results thereof. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve, but economics is boring. Fuck you. Too many people are dying because you think it's boring. Get over it. Grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. It's time. It's time to realize that this is the unifying message, folks. This is ground zero. Because guess what? The Republicans love their kids too. Even the Democrats, as bad as they are, love their children. Even the Greens, as misguided as they are with this positive money AMI crap, love their children. Understanding that we are not broke and that we can afford, without jacking up the taxes to appease the Republicans, and without freaking going nuts and having to cut services to appease them, we can do this today. We don't have to green the dollar to get there. We don't have to do anything hokey to get there. We have it right now. And that's the message I'm giving you. That's why I'm frantic. I am not envisioning myself being here for another 60 years. Hell, I can barely man, folks, I'm not even joking. My blood pressure, and I am on tons of blood pressure meds. My blood pressure's through the roof. When I see CNN write an article saying that Medicare could go broke, could go bankrupt because of Alzheimer's disease, I want to break out. I think if I can do the Snoop Dogg, I got the Gage, the Uzi, and the motherfucking 22. So, anyway, that's where my mind goes when I see that kind of shit. I am livid about the lies that they tell. I am livid about this stuff. This is the stuff, folks, that kills people, literally kills people. When you think about it, poverty kills thousands of people, kills millions of people across the globe. One single point of unemployment, one, is attributed to 45,000 suicides a year. 1 point of unemployment. And we talk about 4,000 people dying in the towers. And we talk about this and that. The reality is we kill more of our own every year by horrific economic policies. More people die of exposure from being outside in the cold. More people die from poisoning, from other things, from drug wars, trying to find any way to survive, from getting shot, breaking into somebody's house, trying to get food, for doing anything to survive, folks. Austerity breeds criminals. People want to live. They want to survive. They got to survive. We got a survival instinct. So people do things. So guess what? you start making it really hard for people to survive, then all of a sudden you've got the gun nutters out there. Man, gotta get me an arsenal. And this is where you get the violence, folks. Austerity, making the economics of survival impossible. And all of a sudden you breed a civil war in there. I'm not lying. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. This stuff haunts me every day. Every day I'm haunted by this. And I'm not even joking. When I watch everybody from the Young Turks, Jordan, Debbie the Same Progressive, Claudia, any of them, Tim Black, H.A. Goodman, any of them. Then you watch the mainstream. You watch Lee Camp. You watch Kyle. You watch all these guys. None of them are talking about proper economics. They're talking about burning the world down. They're talking about eat your peas. They're talking about raising taxes and mocking people that don't understand. They're not talking. They're talking about the deep state. They're talking about this. They're talking about, but they're not talking about proper economics. And they're good friends. I like these people. I like them a lot. I care about them. And I care about you. And so I do this 7 days a week. And I wake up super early. And I go to bed super late. And I try to answer every inbox that comes to me. And I try to make phone calls to anybody that will talk to me. I try and talk to anybody about this stuff. I really mean it. I'm serious. I barely sleep at night because I'm so consumed with the idea that people are dying. And I woke up this morning in tears, devastated that even now, people are still running around talking about our country is broke. Even now, people like my mother, who is almost 80 years old, who lost her husband, they have to worry about their Social Security. That devastates me. And I think about the poor people in these inner cities that are war zones. And I think about the fact that the cities are not monetarily sovereign. The states are not monetarily sovereign. The only way to bring business into the states oftentimes is to cut sweetheart tax deals. The federal government could bail out Puerto Rico. The federal government could fix the water pipes in Flint, Michigan. Folks, we could have single payer today. We could have it today. But we don't. We don't. And the reason is, as much as I want to blame the politicians, as much as I want to blame Citizens United, as much as I want to blame the lobbyists and so forth, it doesn't matter. It's up to us to raise our fists in the air and demand that they change it. I don't care if the Young Turks ever ask Steve Grumbine on this show. I don't care if I'm ever on any local show. I don't care if I'm anywhere. Folks, I'm coming and talking to you directly. I'm pleading with you. Get serious about this. Get serious. It's the only way we have a shot at changing. It's the only shot we have. So with that, folks, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I hope that this was useful to you. I will provide links, as I always do at the end of my economic discussions. I will make sure that you have plenty of reading material. I suggest you read it. Not because I said so, but because I believe that if you sat through this, that you care enough about your kids, that you care enough about our country, that you care enough about the people around the world who are dying because we can't get out of this petro shit, because we need their oil. We need, we're fighting for that crap, okay? You want to get off of oil? We need green energy. You want green energy? It's not going to come because the private sector says so. It's only going to come because our federal government does what it did with the internet. It makes it happen, and then it says, here you go, guys. Use this. That's it. That's it. That's how it's going to happen. Our federal government is going to have to force green energy. It's only going to do that when we demand it does. And it's only going to do it when we tell them we know we can afford it. Don't lie that we can't afford this. We can do great things. We have lots to be hopeful for. But you want to talk about it's in our hands and mean it? This is it. This is the unifying message that pulls the vote blues, that pulls the greens, that pulls the independents, that pulls even some of the Republicans into us that want to save our planet and love their kids. That's how you get the 99% together. The workers of America unite. And I'm not just talking about the workers that are digging ditches. I'm talking about lawyers, they're workers. I'm talking about doctors, they're workers. I'm talking about business owners, they're workers. Hang on. Think about what I'm saying. The 99% truly uniting and demanding that our country serve our needs, our elected officials to stop lying. Folks, the answer is modern monetary theory. The answer is to learn it, and the answer is to demand that they serve us. With that, I'm Steve Crumbine. Have a great night, everybody. I'm out.